Welcome, everyone. Sure glad to have a full house tonight, almost anyway. At this time, I ask those that can to please stand for the invocation and the pledge of the flag. As we pray tonight in these uncertain times, please let us not forget all the good that is around us, like the hard and dangerous work of our first responders, that every day they run into danger while the rest of us duck and hide. Like all of our valuable city employees that take their jobs so seriously for the betterment of our community. Like all the elected officials that take time away from their family to make our community all it can be. And let's not forget the good work of Sir Harry Pettigo for all the good work he does with the less fortunate. Let us all remember the nonprofits doing their best for those with multiple issues, as we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. What is not in our heart. Let us pray in thanksgiving for all God's gifts as we pray in thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. At this time, we'll ask the City Clerk, Beth Davis, to please call the roll, and it will be, what kind of roll call?
Roll call, roll call.
Roll call, roll call.
Commissioner Pam Smithwright.
Here.
Commissioner Sharon D. Smith. Here. Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Caslen.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here. Thank you. We have a couple of proclamations tonight. Is anyone here from the Heart Association? Paul Martin, I thought you had a heart. You don't? Okay. Whereas more than 350,000 people experienced cardiac arrest. Whoops, that's last month. Adrian. Well,
Hard month is February.
Okay. Thanks, City Clerk. Whereas more than 350,000 people experience cardiac arrest outside of a hospital each year, and only about 1 in 10 survive. And more than 23,000 children under the age of 18 experience cardiac arrest outside of a hospital each year in the United States, with almost 40% of those being sports-related issues. Whereas there are effective solutions to this problem, awareness and education, to have cardiac emergency response plans in place, CPR, education, and automated external defibrillators, AED, training, and accessibility. Whereas CPR, especially if performed immediately, can double or triple a person's life of survival, chance of survival. And only about 46% of people who experience cardiac arrest receive CPR from people nearby while waiting for emergency responders to arrive. Whereas knowing how to properly perform CPR has encouraged more people to act when faced with a cardiac emergency and to save more lives from cardiac arrest outside of a hospital. We must increase the number of people who respond to cardiac arrest by calling 911, delivering high-quality CPR, and using the AED as soon as it is available. And whereas American Heart Association has set a goal of doubling the survival of cardiac arrest by 2030 by turning bystanders into lifesavers, so that everyone, everywhere, is prepared and empowered to become a vital link in the chain of survival and provide CPR in response to cardiac emergency. And whereas in celebration of American Heart Month and the American Heart Association's 100th birthday, we urge every household to join the nation of lifesavers and learn CPR. Now therefore, I, Thomas H. Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do hereby proclaim February 24th as American Heart Month in the City of Owensboro, and urge all residents to show their support for the fight against heart disease by commemorating this month as American Heart Month, by increasing awareness, speaking out about heart disease, learning CPR. We can save thousands of lives every year. So, someone still come show up for the heart thing. They didn't have a heart, like Paul Martin, I guess, didn't have a heart. I'm gonna come down here and read this one because I don't need to read this one out front. Come on, Reb.
All right, man.
Thank you. Right there. I'm gonna face that way. Good. First time in your life you ever took any directions from me. Right. On behalf of the City of Owensboro, all our employees and all our retirees, we do hereby proclaim, whereas for many years, February has traditionally been observed as Black History Month throughout the United States. February was chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And whereas the celebration of Black History Month began as Negro History Week, which was created in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, a noted African-American historian, scholar, educator, and publisher. Whereas Black History Month affords special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have attributed to the progress of our nation. Whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of all our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equality for minority groups, and continuing to struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. Now therefore, I, Thomas Hart Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 as Black History Month in Owensboro, and urge all citizens to join in recognition and recognizing and honoring the memory of those African Americans who made a significant contribution to the advancement of our community and the world. Signed and sealed this 6th day of February 2024. Thank you, Reverend. Now I'll give you the opportunity to speak, but no preaching.
But I accept this proclamation on behalf of African American citizenry of Owensboro, and thank you so much, Mayor and the City Commissioners, for letting us show how much we are appreciated in this city as African American citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can find him most Sundays at Zion Baptist Church, can't you? Right. Okay. Get up on the mic so everybody at home.
Super Bowl.
This coming Sunday, we're having a gospel explosion at the Zion Baptist Church at 3 o'clock, and you want to come and get your praise on, come on down. 2311 West 9th Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Okay, now we'll get on to the boring stuff. No, I shouldn't say that. Item 5A, consider approval of minutes from the January 16th, 2024 meeting. I'll make a motion to approve these minutes. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion, deletions, or additions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Please consider these board appointments. Senior Citizen Center of Owensboro and Davis County, reappoint Calvin C.W. Williams and Tina Wright to a 3-year term effective February the 16th, 2024. And the Human Relations Commission, appoint Dava Kelly to fill the remainder of an unexpired term, which ends December the 4th, 2025, replacing Joe Acquisto. So I'll make a motion to approve these appointments. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, second reading. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 2-2024, an ordinance annexing to the city of Owensboro certain unincorporated territory in the county of Davis, adjoining the present boundary line of the city, being property located adjacent to 4359 Harbor Hills Trace, Tract 1, containing .074 acres, more or less, and property located adjacent to 4335 and 4323 Harbor Hills Trace, Tract 2, containing .105 acres, more or less, at the request of Breck Properties, LLC, read for approval on second reading the 6th day of February, 2024.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Since we talked, this is the second reading. City Manager, you want to add anything to it?
I will not. I know the Assistant City Manager covered this in my absence last meeting, so unless you have any questions, this is really more of an administrative cleanup. It's an annexation of less than 2/10 of an acre, and they have to be in the city because the properties they are being enjoined to are already in the city, and they must be in the same jurisdiction.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Smithright,
Aye.
Commissioner Neesmith,
Aye.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caslen,
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6B, please.
Ordinance 3-2024, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023, and ending June 30, 2024, and amending ordinance 13-2023 to provide for receipt of grant funds and associated appropriations, and to adjust carryovers in transit and central dispatch. Read for approval on second reading the 6th day of February, 2024.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, this is second reading of a budget amendment for our current fiscal year. The amendment primarily involves the receipt and expenditure of various grant funds, including grants for OPD, transit, and a U.S. Tennis Association grant for the tennis facility on Biddle Road. In addition, this amendment provides the additional funding necessary to proceed with the Cravens Pool project.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Davis?
Commissioner Neesmith,
Aye.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Caslen,
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn,
Aye.
Commissioner Smithright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is approved. Item 7A, please, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 4-2024, an ordinance confirming the sale and awarding a non-exclusive electric franchise to Kinergy Corp. For the construction, operation, maintenance, and distribution of electricity for light, heating, and other purposes within the public rights-of-way within the city of Owensboro for a term of 10 years, imposing a franchise fee of 3% of Kinergy Corp's gross annual revenues derived from the franchise awarded herein, and authorizing the mayor to sign a franchise agreement with Kinergy Corp. Introduced and publicly read on first reading the 6th day of February, 2024.
Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, you recently approved the creation of a new electric service franchise for portions of the city that are outside the OMU service territory. The franchise was bid as required by law, and as expected, Kinergy was the only company to submit a proposal. As I shared previously, they own all the infrastructure in question, so they're really the only practical bidder, really. As a result, this is first reading of an ordinance awarding that franchise to Kinergy. As we discussed when the franchise was created, this really mirrors the franchise that you awarded to Atmos last year, except this is a 10-year term, and Atmos requested a 20-year term on their franchise last year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any of you OMU people want to chime in? Nope.
As a municipal, OMU is exempt from this process, so we don't have to do that with them.
I know.
But we do with Kinergy for those portions that are outside of the OMU territory.
Okay, thank you. Item 7B, please.
Ordinance 5-2024, and ordinance amending Code of Ordinances for rates for water and water utility service as adopted by the City Utility Commission of the City of Owensboro, Kentucky on January 18th, 2024. Introduced and publicly read on first reading the 6th day of February, 2024.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is first reading of a water rate increase ordinance for OMU. The presentation will be delivered, or at least initially started, by OMU General Manager Tim Lyons. So if you would acknowledge him for his comments.
Mr. Lyons, I acknowledge you.
Thank you. General Manager Tim Lyons, Owensboro Municipal Utilities, 2070 Tamarack Road, Owensboro, Kentucky. We're here today to provide an overview of a few items, but first we want to give you an update on our water system, some projects that are ongoing that we think are of particular interest to the community. We will then move into some water system projections where we will give you an update on our revenues and costs associated with our system over the past few years and our 5-year forecast. In the middle there, cost of service study and rate development, we have employed the consultant utility financial solutions, and Jill Jersick, who's right here, she will be presenting this information. Essentially, we know what the cost and the revenues associated with our projects are, but this cost of service breaks it down to the rate classes, and we always use a consultant to assist us with that. The water rate, we will then move into the water system rate and the impacts associated with that. And then we will provide an overview of the water system rate ordinance changes where some language needs to be made to the ordinance and modifications, and then provide a summary at the end. So first of all, on the water system update, on behalf of the Utility Commission and our 160 dedicated employees, we want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I would be remiss to take this opportunity to thank our employees for all they do each and every day. As you can see in that picture, this is something that faces our water crews many times during the year. What you see in this picture is a typical day, but what you don't see, it was 9 degrees and sub-zero weather, and they were out restoring service to about 30 customers for a very long period of time. So we want to thank them for all that they do. When lines start breaking, red trucks start rolling, and service restoration is soon to be coming your way. Also want to take this opportunity to thank our commission and appreciate the appointments that the City Commission and the Mayor has provided for us. They truly care about our company, OMU, and they truly care about this community. Tony Cecil, who is our chair. J.T. Fulkerson's our vice chair. He's here with us today. Susie Lamar, and Dr. Tom Maddox, and Paul Martin, who's here with us today. So we really appreciate all the support they give us each and every day. One of the largest projects that we have going on is the Hillcrest system upgrades. This is all part of we're being able to perform this function or this project due to the ARPA funds that have been provided by the city of about $2.5 million. So first of all, we want to thank you for those funds. They're going to very good use. We've done significant studies. So one of the studies was to look at replacing the water tower at Hillcrest Golf Course. And the most efficient way to utilize the money was to put 2 pumping stations in and place about 6,000 foot of pipe. And we're not only going to be able to increase water pressure to the Hillcrest area, but we'll be looking at the Highland area and even the Ragu Drive area. The pumps will be strategically placed along the Green Belt and Old Hartford Road, one of them, and the other one up on Ragu Drive close to Amico. Also want to take this opportunity to thank City Manager Pagan and Assistant City Manager Hancock on their assistance with working with the easements and helping us secure these spots for these locations. The only drawback is when you come up to the 7th hole at Hillcrest, you won't be able to shank the golf ball off the water tower here in the next year and a half or so. Also, as we are identifying projects, we want to take this opportunity to thank Davis County Fiscal Court for making a $550,000 project associated with Senate Bill 36 Phase 1 and 2. This has allowed OMU to install 2 new water wells for our water production facility and 4 small main project replacements in the city of Owensboro. In addition, we'd like to thank GRAD for all their assistance in helping us secure these funds. We'd also take this opportunity to thank the Owensboro Riverport Authority for their assistance on the Highway 331 project. This has allowed us to increase pipe size from 8-inch to 12-inch while they've had that road opened up. And it was only going to cost OMU about $300,000 for this system upgrade as compared to what it may have cost if we had to perform the whole work from one end to the other and dig up the ditch. So we're very appreciative of that. At this point, we're going to move into what we're here to discuss, the water system rate ordinance, and kind of give you a preview and overview of our findings. One of the things is, why do we review our rates? Well, it is very important for OMU to maintain the financial stability of the utility. 2 of our key metrics that we measure is maintaining a debt service coverage ratio of over 1.2, 1.4, and then maintain target days cash on hand in this process. One of the things that has been identified as we perform this study is that we have not been insulated from inflation. We've seen much higher inflation rates than what we have expected in this 5-year term. And in addition to that, some supply chain issues have been part of increasing our cost. Our last base revenue adjustment was approved in 2018, and that was primarily associated with the cabin plant upgrades. In our 5-year financial projections, in October of this past year, we projected base revenue increases of just over 9% for fiscal year 2024 and 2025. And those should become effective March 1 of each year. And then we also look at a longer term of a next projects that might need to be where we might need to increase our rates in future years 28 and 29. That's more associated with the anticipated well field development. But the focus of today's review is going to be between now and 2028, 2029 timeframe. We still have some studies to perform on the well field. We think the well field might be performing a little bit better than what we expected, and we might be able to push those costs out several more years. As I mentioned, higher than anticipated inflation combined with increased chemical costs and supply chain issues have impacted our total cost here at OMU. And the metric we have the most concern with is our declining days cash on hand. And our cash position is at a point where it could concern rating agencies as we move forward. Our last base rate revenue adjustment was approved by the City Commission in 2018 for the cabin treatment plan of 20% in 2018 and 12% in 2019. I just want to say that that plan has been a godsend. It's worked. It's very efficient. It was built on time, on budget, and we completed it during a pandemic. It has also received the Kentucky-Tennessee AWW Large Water Treatment Plant of the Year Award. So we're very pleased with this plant, and as we go through this presentation, I can show where some of the savings we've achieved through production costs due to the efficiency of that plant. Some of our expense assumptions as we move forward, we're looking at estimated increases in inflation of about 3.5% for this upcoming fiscal year, and then in the average of 3 to 5% moving forward. Chemicals and other large expenses were modeled explicitly. We've been working with our vendors, and we have a pretty good idea that those costs are going to increase about 5% year over year for this time period. As I mentioned, the last financing was for $48.6 million in September 2018. And then our capital plans include the award of funds associated with Senate Bill 36, as I've mentioned, and the ARPA funds of $2.3 million that's remaining from the city of Owensboro. So here's where our expenses, as a result of the inflation and supply chain issues, our operating costs for the water system have increased more significantly than historical averages. Assuming historical averages, we would have expected our cost to increase in the range of 12 to 14% over this time period. And as you can see, our costs have increased at about a rate of 27% over this time period. As we break it down, production costs comprise of over half of the O&M expenses of the water system. In fiscal year 2023, the production cost was at 35.4% in this time period. And more importantly, chemicals, where we have seen the greatest increase, has increased 47% in this time frame. As I mentioned, the bright spot was our power costs, and due to the efficiency of the plant, reduced expenses by approximately 11.8%, which has helped offset some of the cost expenses and pressures that we're currently facing. Nevertheless, in front of you, the water system revenue requirements are projected to be for the next term through fiscal year 2029. And if we do not make a rate adjustment, you can follow the yellow line and can see that we will not meet our obligations to meet our cost associated with here in the very near future. The rate proposal that will be presented to you this evening, if approved, the dotted line is what we're expecting we will see out of our rate increase, and that will meet our revenue requirements. This is of all the metrics, as I say, this is our greatest concern. If you look at the operating days cash on hand, the blue bar is what our days cash on hand will be if OMU does nothing. With the proposed rate modifications that are presented in front of you, the dotted line we should start seeing an uptrend in our days on cash in the next fiscal year, and then we will see getting to even a healthier position in future years 26, 27, and 28 as we move forward. Our debt coverage service ratio is projected to continue to be strong throughout the forecast period. The proposed rate action will further support this metric to be maintained above the minimum and targets. Once again, if nothing is done, the blue boxes is what our debt coverage service ratio will be over the term, and by the rate action, the blue dotted line will show where we anticipate our debt service coverage ratio will be. So I've presented a lot of information as far as cost and revenues associated with our projections. I'll pause at this moment to see if anybody has any questions at this time before I turn it over to Jillian Jersick, who is with Utility Financial Solutions.
Okay, Commissioner Glenn?
Yes, I
Yes,
just
sir.
have two questions. So
Yes, sir.
we talked about chemical costs.
Yep.
Have gone up significantly. What kind of chemicals do we typically use in our water supply? I assume chlorine, but beyond that,
Sodium
you're the expert.
hypochlorite is one of the, and it's just pretty much a chlorine-based product, and then lime is the other that we typically use. Is there any other significant? Fluoride and polyphosphates.
I was waiting to hear about fluoride because
Yeah.
that green. Okay, now the other question I've got. So on your debt service coverage, it looks like from about 2025 on, it's going to drop substantially because you don't have any major projects planned. You're done with the cat, right? Is this right? Am I reading this right?
Well, it's
From fiscal year 25, it begins to drop.
Debt service coverage ratio?
Right.
Actually, our debt coverage service ratio increases by the rate impacts based on our rate, yeah. But it will increase, and for bonding agencies, it's better to have a higher debt coverage service ratio what our concerns are that without the rate action, that when you get out to about 2028, 2029, the blue bars will fall below our target and minimums.
Okay. So I guess let me ask my question a different way. So the total debt OMU has, independent of this variable, is it going down or going up? Because I know when we didn't build the new Elmer Smith, it should have helped you financially to not have to bond debt anything but the capital water plant and the demolition of Elmer Smith. Is that accurate?
So yeah, well, the one thing we do is we keep two sets of books, one for the electric side and one for the water side. So our debt, I say, as we continue to make debt payments on the cabin plant, it will continue to go down, and that's figured in our rates on the debt payment. So.
And then on the electric side, is it also declining?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's where I was going.
Yeah,
I probably
yeah,
get this variable right, but
yeah, and on the electric side, our debt continues to go down each and every year.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Gaslin?
Tim,
Yes, sir.
what do you figure to be the average family's increase on this?
If we could hold that to the end, we will go through each scenario,
Okay.
and we can provide you that, what we anticipate the monthly bill will be. We have a lot of slides on that here toward the end.
Do you feel confident that this is as low a rate increase as you should possibly go?
Yes, we believe that to be the fact, because, and I'll go back to that slide with our water system operating cash days on hand, that if we don't make those two adjustments like it is, we will have to continually come down here to ask for smaller increases, because we need to get it going in the opposite direction, because it's falling off at a much faster pace due to cost expenses.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Tim, I was talking with some of your employees today. I got my OMU bill today and I almost fell out. It was $133 more than it was last month. But my question is, other than budget billing, do you have some kind of another way for people who are struggling to pay this bill? I mean, everybody can't, they don't have the money. And then with this increase, what do you do?
We work with the Salvation Army, and that's one of the places that we donate our money, and we try to steer our customers in that area to help assist with those who are in need that might not be able to fund their bills. That's the top priority that we do. And then of course our group, I think they do a very good job of trying to work with individuals on a case-by-case basis to help with, getting minimum payments until maybe someone can get some relief from some area.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Tom will probably, Mayor will probably tell you I shouldn't be saying this at this time, but I'm learning
You
still.
shouldn't be saying it.
All right, I just quit. Okay, thank you, Tom. I just want, when I saw this presentation, it's the first time as a commissioner I had the opportunity to understand more of things. So the first thing that happens is like, oh no, but something else is going up. But one of the things that I learned, and I don't know how many other people might not know this either, the cash on hand is extremely important, because again, the city and OMU only have so much money, but what if something happened and we had a $50 million disaster that we needed? So if we had to go borrow that money, we're going to borrow it at a rate based on our cash on hand. And as we all know, inflation and also the interest rates, it's a big difference between 2, 3, 5 interest rates to 7 and 8. So I just want to add that so that people will understand a little bit more. You may not like a rate increase, but at least understand why.
Thank you. Yeah, and one thing our commission has stated, and myself, we don't like to come for these rate increases, but just with the current climate, the inflationary pressures that we're seeing, we just felt it was necessary at this time to make sure that we keep our system financially stable, in addition, providing proper finances where we can finance projects, infrastructure upgrades, to continue to keep the system viable. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
At this time, as I say, we have a good handle on revenues and costs, but when we get into breaking the cost down and how that's to be shared across revenue classes, we bring in consultants. So at this point, I want to bring up Jillian Jursic with Utility Financial Solutions, and she'll give you an overview of where we are. Thank you.
Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. They warned me of that. My name is Jillian Jursic. I'm with Utility Financial Solutions, 185 Sun Meadow Court, Holland, Michigan, 49424.
All right.
So thank you so much for having me here. Can you hear me okay? I'm shorter than Tim, so we'll do that. Is that good?
Good.
Okay, great. So our firm, Utility Financial Solutions, has been working with municipal utilities all over the country since 2001, and we help them plan financially for the future, so we get the fun job. And we assisted OMU with 3 studies, and these 3 studies work together to form the recommendations that you'll see today. So the first study is called a financial projection, and what a financial projection does is it takes your historical financial data, and it uses economic indicators to forecast that financial data out for a period of 5 years. And it looks at inflation, how inflation might impact your expenses, growth, and we look at how your current rates are recovering the cost. So are your current rates recovering enough cost to pay your debt payment on time, to have enough cash in the bank? And it gives us some targets to work within when we're looking at potential revenue adjustments. The second study is called a cost of service study, and this study I like to call a moment in time analysis. So we are just looking at one moment in time, 1 year worth of your expenses and revenue, and we take a deep dive into those expenses to see how these costs are being incurred and by what customer classes. So you charge residential rates and commercial rates, and by meter size, and we look at how those costs are incurred and then the revenue that's generated from that class to determine if each class is generating enough revenue to cover those expenses. Now, no utility charges perfectly cost to serve rates, but what it does is it gives us guidance when we go to do our third study, which is the rate design, so where we actually look at your rate tariff and we move the various rate components, because the cost of service study also gives us information about the facilities charge, so that monthly charge that you bill each month, and then the usage component that you bill per unit of water. But every projection is built on assumptions. And first of all, I want to tell you that you have a fantastic staff here at OMU. And I'm a third party, so I come in with my models and I put the financial data in and I do an analysis. And when I compared my analysis to OMU staff's financial projection that they do internally, we were pretty spot on. And that doesn't happen very often. So I was very pleased with that. I'm going to work from left to right on this table. There's a lot of numbers. So you'll see our projection period, 2024 is kind of an interim year. That's why it's in gray. And then our projection period is from 2025 through 2029. Although we're not going to focus too much on 2029 because that's way down the road. So our first column is for inflation. And the rate you're seeing is a blended inflation rate. So we're taking into account general inflation and then the specific factors that Tim reviewed as far as those chemical costs or known changes like labor cost. So that's the inflation rate that you see each year. The next two columns are our growth assumptions. Now, in water, it's really important to be conservative on this assumption because water is extremely weather dependent. Water sales are very weather dependent. So you'll see a very conservative growth assumption there. And for financial planning, we want to be conservative. So that's also why investment income is at 0.5%. That's a very small element of the projection. It doesn't affect too much, but we have a conservative 0.5% for investment income. Capital improvement plan, those are the system improvements that you're making each year. It's pretty consistent around $3 million, which is fantastic, but you'll see out in 2028, the next column over has a large bond issuance for $27.5 million. And that is associated with a project that you're not seeing. It's outside of our projection window for the Wellfield developments. But since we are planning ahead, we wanted to put that bonding into our projection to be conservative and to see how that bonding would affect the tail end of our projection period and to prepare for those improvements out in 2030 and 2031. So we assumed a 30-year bond at 5%. Now the last two columns are just information about your utility. Your debt to equity ratio is at 85% currently. The national average is actually around 90, so you are just below that. And then your percent plant depreciated is very low for a water utility at 44%, and that's because of your new treatment plant. Okay, so I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on this slide as well. This is our projection summary. And when we first look at your financial projection, we look at it with no rate adjustments. So this is your current rate structure as it stands today. And we look at those three key financial targets when we're assessing your financials. So starting with the debt coverage ratio column, you can see that we start out with a pretty good debt coverage ratio at 1.46, and this mirrors Tim's slide earlier. It falls toward the tail end of the projection to a 0.84. Now, what a debt coverage ratio is it's a metric that says, okay, with your cash from operations in a given year, how many times over can you make your debt payment? And we like to target for financial planning purposes, this is super conservative, but we target a 1.4. Now I mentioned before that water sales are very dependent on weather. So we want to make sure that we are not in violation of our bond covenants in any given year, and that's why for financial planning purposes, we target that higher 1.4 ratio. Typically in a bond ordinance, it's either a 1 or a 1.2, but we like to have that safety factor built in. So the next two columns are associated with the adjusted operating income target. And that is our upper boundary target. So I didn't mention the debt coverage ratio is really our floor when we go to build a rate design because we cannot be in violation of our bond ordinance. But the operating income target creates our ceiling so that we have something to work between when we're looking at those revenue adjustments. Now, the adjusted operating income sounds strange because you're a publicly owned utility. So you shouldn't make money, right? But you do need to make money in order to break even. And within your revenue requirement, there are two things that are not recovered through your revenue requirement. The first is interest expense on debt. So the operating income is capturing that interest expense on debt so we can pay for that. The second item is the inflationary increase in the replacement cost of your assets. So stay with me here. I'll give you an example. So say you put an asset into service for $1 million today, and it has a depreciable life of 10 years. Theoretically, every year you're going to depreciate that asset at $100,000. So you're taking $100,000 and you're setting it aside over the life of that asset, and that's part of your revenue requirement, and it's built into your rates. Now, the problem with that is that at the end of 10 years, you're going to have $1 million that you've recovered to replace that asset. But when you go to replace it, it's not going to cost $1 million anymore. It's going to cost something more. So this operating income is capturing that inflationary increase in the replacement cost of your assets, so that when you go to replace the asset, you have recovered enough funds from the customers who were consuming that asset at the time. So if we're meeting that target, then we're fully funding our system. In rare instances, we do need to exceed that target depending on other various financial factors. Now, the cash balances is kind of our target that floats in the middle. And we define what's called a minimum cash reserve. And we have a minimum cash reserve to cover 4 things. The first is money in the bank to pay your bills. So there's a timing lag between when you receive money from customers and when you have to go out and pay your bills. So we want to have money in the bank to do that. The second is to pay your principal payments on your debt service. So we always want to have your principal payment in reserve. The third is for your capital improvement program, because we need to be able to fund our infrastructure. And the fourth is more of a subjective item, but it's an emergency fund. So there's a risk associated with having a utility, like with the picture of the men being out there on the cold day repairing that pipe. We need to have the funds in the bank to be able to cover those costs when they occur. And so our recommended minimum cash sits at around $8.5 million. And that's between 150 and 200 days cash on hand. And you can see that throughout the projection, with no changes in rates, our days cash on hand are falling to negative values. And that's really what's driving our rate plan that you'll see on the next slide. So again, we're really just focusing on 2025 and 2026. 2029, you'll see a 12.5 rate adjustment. That's just for planning purposes. OMU will come back and do another cost of service study prior to implementing that rate adjustment. But with 2 years at 9% increases, you can see that our debt coverage ratio is healthy. Our operating income is working up toward that target. Our cash balances aren't quite at the minimum of $8.5 million, but we are in that range for our target between 150 and 200 days cash on hand. Okay, so it's always tricky to talk about rates in terms of percentages, and I just want to assure you that you have some of the lowest rates in the nation. You really do. And even with the 9% adjustment, your water rates are very, very good and compare very well to other water utilities. So what you're seeing on this slide is the input from the cost of service study to help move your rate components toward cost of service in your rate design. So I'm going to start at the line that says 5.5 and 3/4 inch inside. That $9.40 is what you currently charge for your monthly facilities charge, and that's a charge that's billed each month of the year. And we are proposing that we move that charge up 75 cents per month each year. The same thing on the 1 inch, only we're recommending that we move them up $1 per month each year. And that's to move them toward their cost of service. So they were a little underfunding on that metric. The larger meters were actually meeting their cost of service, so we are not proposing any change to their monthly facilities charge with this rate design. So the rest of that 9% increase to meet that target from the financial projection is going into the usage charge. You charge what's called a declining block rate structure. And all that means is that the first block costs more than the second block, and the second block costs more than the third. So the more water you use, you get a discount on it. And so the remainder of that increase is going into that usage or commodity portion of the rate design. So we're moving block 1 up from $2.09 up to $2.32, and then up to $2.57, and blocks 2 and 3 just fall out from that. Now, we did not propose any structural changes to your rate design on the previous slide, but we are proposing some structural changes as it relates to your sprinkling class. So currently, OMU separately meters and bills for sprinkling, and they bill a second meter charge because there's a second meter on the home when you sprinkle. So their billed, you'll see that monthly facilities charge is also given to the sprinkling customers. And then they are also charged for their usage. So currently, they're billed at the same usage rate as everybody else. But we are proposing that we put them on their own rate and that it's a flat rate for sprinkling. So it would just be the sprinkling meter that's billed at this rate. And the reason for this, there's 2 reasons. The first is that 90% of the sprinkling usage falls within that first block of water. So it simplifies things for billing. The second is a fairness reason. And I'm going to give another example to help illustrate it. So when you have a residential, it's your typical residential customer, you install 1 unit of capacity to serve this residential customer, and you bill that 1 unit every month of the year, and that unit costs $2 a month. So over the course of the year, that unit costs $24. What happens with sprinkling is they still require that 1 unit of capacity to serve them, but they're only using the sprinkling for 8 months out of the year here in Owensboro. So we're billing $2 for 8 months out of the year, and we're only recovering $16, but the cost is still there for the whole year on our side. So it's still costing us $24. So we really need to be charging them 24 divided by 8, $3 for their 1 unit of capacity. So that's what's happening here with the sprinkling class and why we would like to put them on a separate rate. So in summary, we are requesting to move forward with 2 years at 9% increase for March of 2024 and March of 2025. And then internally, we will be adjusting the renewal and replacement percentage that has no effect on the retail rates that you saw today. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I've got one. So give us the average consumer that's going to have this second, meter for sprinkling. Is it a corporate, most likely a company with a corporate headquarters? Give us a picture of who the typical consumer would be that would be affected by that.
Somebody who has a house with a big yard and they're watering their lawn to keep it green.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
But
pretty
not like-
typically.
We have just less than 650 customers that have the second meter
Less
associated
than
with.
$6.50?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay. Since you're out and about, is the number of municipally owned facilities going up, down, stagnant? What are you seeing?
It's not going up. I would say it's pretty level. unfortunately, there have been times where the utility hasn't sustained, but there are definitely strong municipal water utilities. Electric can get a little bit different as far as consolidation goes. It really depends on the state.
So would you say what percentage of your electricity is coal-fired product?
Coal-fired. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's fine.
30% is popping up in my head, but I don't quote me on that.
We will. Don't worry about it. So where would you anticipate nuclear energy coming into this scenario?
That's a great question. I know that the project over in Utah is stalled. I definitely see nuclear energy coming to the forefront in other countries more quickly than it's coming to the forefront in the U.S. Canada has had an influx of nuclear power plants and projects that they've taken up. And I know that where I'm from in Michigan, we just closed our nuclear plant about 2 years ago, Palisades. It was a sad day. But yeah, they closed our plant. I know there's been talks about reopening it, and I think it really depends on small modular reactors and how that technology seems to take to market. Nuclear plants, even though they're carbon free, they are very expensive to build, and we're not very efficient at building them. So it really depends on how the technology can advance.
And also figuring out what to do with the waste, maybe?
Yes, and that as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Well, that's a lot of information. We're going to count on Nate Pagan to unpack it for us. So we appreciate you. Are you a Wolverine fan?
Yay, sports.
So, as mentioned, we have presented a lot of information for you, but really the question comes back to what Commissioner Castlin asked: what is the impact to the OMU customer? And what we are proposing, the average OMU water customer utilizes about 500 cubic feet per month. And so our proposal would indicate that based on the rates that are in front of you, an increase of $1.90 per month effective March 1, 2024, and another increase the following March in 2025 of $2, so just under $4. The next slide kind of gives an overview of what a resident that might be utilizing less water, like at 200 cubic feet, will be like $1.20 per year over year. And then, the higher usage residential customers could see anywhere between $38.66 to $42.63, and then on up to $46.88. And then our commercial customers, based upon the meter size and the usage, it is indicated down through there as it goes across in each one of those classes. And then more importantly, how does OMU compare to the region? Of course, we know that nationally water in this area is much cheaper than in most areas. But if you look at our average customer, when we go through the two-step increase, we still are at the lower end of residential. We're still at the lower end of rates for this class of customer and this amount of usage compared to the region. Likewise, we are still in the same arena when it comes to our commercial monthly bills at the lower usage, commercial usage. Our monthly rates still are in the lower tier. And then for our larger commercial usage, once again, with this two-step increase, we are in the lower end or regionally competitive. And one thing I will make mention is we're identifying our rates stepped year over year. All those in gray are a snapshot, and we do know that many of those are anticipating or looking at rate increases associated with cost increases to their community. So we could bring this back in 2 years, and we know that that will be adjusted. So overall, we feel like that even with this rate increase, we're going to be one of the lowest water providers in the region. And then, you know, the average person drinks about 58 gallons of water per year. They buy about 439 bottles of water. At the grocery store, that's $61. For OMU, that's 25 cents. We feel like we have a good water quality source here and have a good tasting water, and we believe that's a great benefit. You know, just to recap, our base rates have two components, the customer charge and the usage charge. And our base rates recover on our production system, our source of supply, pumping and treatment. Our transmission and distribution group, they supply our meters, mains, valves, operations, and maintenance. And then the water system portion of our customer service and general administrative service expenses, our payment in lieu of taxes, and our depreciated and debt service costs. Now, moving into the rate ordinance language changes. As Jill has indicated, we are requesting to move into an irrigation usage rate or a sprinkling rate. This allows OMU to recover infrastructure costs during a limited annual usage period. And then the other two are pretty much payment languages, makes our language consistent with our electric rate ordinance. And then the other fees and charges languages incorporates some clarification made under the state, providing that the specified fees and charges can be established by the Utility Commission. So that's just some cosmetic changes to that portion of the language. We're also proposing changing the language from OMU electric generating plant to all OMU facilities. We want to modify the tapping fees schedule. The meter size is changed to be consistent with the annual fee schedule. And then we want to eliminate the customer service charge for an 1 1/4 meter because we have no customers that utilize that meter size. So our proposed action and the ordinance is in front of you. We're proposing a base rate increase of 9% in the last quarter of fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025, which become effective March 1 of each one of those, 2024 and 2025. And the average residential customer revenue increased by $1.90 in fiscal year 2024 and $2 in 2025 on their average monthly bill. And, you know, the final thing is that, you know, the rate that we have in front of you does not consider any potential regulatory regulations that are out there pending. That will have to be a pass-through as we move forward, but we're keeping an eye on that, and we'll keep you posted if anything changes in that area. So with that, that concludes our presentation for this evening.
Tim, does that $1.90 that's on the others, yeah, is that for a residential customer that with or without sprinkler?
This would just be for the meter that serves their house.
Okay.
And typically what people want, they want the other meter is because
no surcharge.
No surcharge. That's correct.
So
that meter that is utilized for your residence, the house, the same reading is utilized by RWRA to calculate their sewer service. But the second meter, people request that's just for sprinkling their yards. So.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Mr. Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, the lady from Michigan mentioned that the rates that OMU had projected lined up with hers so well and complimented our OMU family. And I've always felt that our OMU family was top-notch. We pay lower rates than the majority of the country, and it just goes to show what top-notch people that we have working for us and how our OMU family tries to keep rates at the lowest possible. And anyway, I just want to thank you all for doing an excellent job on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know
Appreciate
how many of us would like to be up in one of those bucket trucks in a damn lightning storm trying to fix the wire.
Or in that hole in the winter.
In the hole in the
Yeah, in the hole,
wintertime,
yeah.
so, thank you all.
But
We-
yeah, we have not only we have a great group, but, fire department, police departments, we have a great group of people that do extraordinary work for this community. So we want to thank you for your service to this community also, so.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you all. Thank you all very much. Okay. I'm lost. Where are we? Going to 8, municipal orders. We don't have any. Yay. City manager items.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, tonight for your consideration, we have the following personnel appointments. Benjamin Miller, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to bus driver with transit effective February 12th. Stephen Mueller, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to firefighter with the fire department effective February 26th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. David Spalding, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to firefighter with the fire department effective February 26th. Emily Anderson, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to recreation specialist with the Parks and Recreation Department effective February 11th. Tina Lynch, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to recreation facilities manager with Parks and Recreation effective January 30th. Henry Briner, Joseph Brown, William Houston Riney, Victor Schuttheis, Justin Wheeler, and Jackson Woodard, regular full-time, non-civil service appointments to firefighter with the fire department effective February 15th. And Brian Vallada, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to evidence collection unit tech with the police department effective February 27th.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion from the commission to approve these appointments.
Second. Or motion?
Motion, thank you, Commissioner Glenn. Could I have a second, please? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Castleton. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Do you have any comments, citizens?
No other comments tonight, Mayor.
Communication from elected officials. Commissioner Glenn.
Just want to congratulate our firefighters that received recognition at the recent awards ceremony at Station 1. They're our heroes. They do great work, as does our police department. It's always great to see them recognized. Also want to congratulate the businesses that won Chamber of the Year Business Awards, including Cahaba Java. That was really exciting, the Minority Business of the Year. And more importantly, this year we bought a subscription to the symphony, and I'll just say, for a small community of 100,000 people, we are blessed to have a great symphony orchestra. And the arts in our community, we should be rightly and justifiably proud, but our symphony really makes us proud every time they perform. So glad to be here, and hope everybody has a wonderful week.
Commissioner Castleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I went to the symphony also this past week, and as the commissioner just stated, we do have a beautiful symphony, and if you ever get the chance, be sure to make it there. Also want to remind all of the people out there with a significant other that Valentine's Day is coming up. Be sure not to forget that. I did that once and never lived it down. But so I'll make sure that that's always covered. Also, I've kind of got a concern that I've noticed a lot more signage being placed on city property at intersections. You know, we have an ordinance that says you're not to put signs up on city property obstructing right-of-ways and at intersections, and it's getting to where some of the intersections have 8 or 10 signs, and you know, people really don't care if you've got junk to haul or you buy houses or you're you know, having a mattress sale or whatever. Keep them off of city property. You've got your phone number on there, so it's going to be easy to pass fines on if that's what we have to start doing. But we would like to avoid that. So please go ahead and move your signs, if you have them up on city property, and quit placing them there. Thank you.
You do know this is an election year, don't you?
I know.
Okay, just checking. Commissioners,
I'm here for the community, not just to vote.
Commissioner Neesmith.
I'm just going to say thank you, Lord, for the sunshine and the warm weather this week.
Amen. Commissioner Smith, right?
I gave you the candy,
I know.
and you was trying to give it away.
I was giving it to my wife. Barbara's sitting right over there. Oh, you got one.
See the kind of person I am?
Yeah, that's the kind of person you are. I agree.
I don't have anything. Just happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is open public forum. Members of the audience may address the Board of Commissioners.
On any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda, comments are limited to issues within the scope and responsibility of this commission. Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of Owensboro citizens and taxpayers. The meetings are not intended to serve as public forums for candidates who are campaigning for political office. Political candidates will not be allowed to use the commission meeting to promote their candidacy for public office. This time, anyone who wishes to address the city commission, please make their way to the podium to be recognized. Speakers must state their name and address for the record and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Since the item is not on the agenda, no response is required from staff or the Board of Commissioners. The mayor reserves the right to extend the time of the speaker. Anybody like to speak? I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor
Second.
indicate by saying aye. Aye. We're out of here.